Welcome to the 2025 Track and Field Online Rules module. My name is Jason Nickleby. I'm an Assistant Director with the League and the Director of the Officiating Program. I will be narrating the first and last portions of this module. You will hear from John Pursoon, our State Coordinator of Track and Field Officials, as well as Jen Meyer, a State Tournament starter. They will cover the rules changes, points of emphasis, and the editorial changes for this year. We will first cover some general track and field information before reviewing the rules changes for 2025. We will cover the NFHS points of emphasis as well as the Minnesota points of emphasis and wrap up the module with a review of several administrative items. We have added the concept of a pre-contest administrative and medical timeout during the 2024-2025 school year. This meeting will take place approximately 10 minutes before the contest begins and will hopefully be led by a site administrator. The meeting will cover sportsmanship, what to do with a challenging situation such as an unruly spectator or other disruption, as well as medical emergency planning. This should also include weather. We hope this meeting will get administrators, coaches, and officials on the same page going into their respective contest. This is not a required meeting that the schools are holding with officials, coaches, and medical personnel, but we are certainly recommending that it take place. And when you check in as an official with the school, you should inquire if a pre-contest timeout will take place. Prior to the start of a contest, the host school is responsible for determining whether or not the conditions present a threat to the safety of participants and spectators and will determine whether or not the contest will begin. Once the contest begins, the officials have the authority to postpone or suspend a contest due to unsafe weather conditions. That decision may not be overruled. School officials also have this authority. On-site medical professionals should also be consulted and included in the decision-making process. The superintendent or his or her designee may overrule an official and suspend or postpone a contest once it has started. In other words, once a contest has begun, either the officials or school authorities may overrule an official and suspend or postpone a contest once it has begun. While lightning on the horizon should warn of potential danger, lightning associated with thunder or thunder alone means that there is an immediate danger to athletes, officials, and spectators. If we observe lightning or hear thunder, all athletes and coaches should be evacuated and the 30-minute clock begins. This clock cannot be interrupted or shortened. We need to go all the way to 0 before we resume the meet. No app or any person can overrule this time period. Officials and coaches need to understand that we work an outdoor sport or we're part of an outdoor sport and we need to have reasonable expectations about resuming the activity. Officials, if we have a lightning delay, we need to take a deep breath and wait a little bit and see if we can resume the meet. Don't head for home immediately. Coaches, do not expect officials to stay around for 6 hours just to get the meet in. If the cell is covering the entire state of Minnesota, it's not likely that we're going to continue. So we need to have reasonable expectations on both sides as officials and as coaches, and we need to work with medical professionals on site and school administrators to make a decision about resuming the activity. As a reminder, if a coach, parent, or other concerned party has an eligibility question, such as chemical or behavior issues, should direct those questions to the activities director. Even if an athlete is ineligible, the officials are not to rule on such matters, and all inquiries should be directed to the activities director of the school involved. Even if the AD asks for an athlete to be removed, the athletic director or activities administrator needs to do this. Officials do not get involved in alleged bylaw infractions.
Hello, this is John Pursoon, the State Track and Field Coordinator. I am joined by Jen Myers, who will once again help me narrate this presentation. We will be addressing the 2025 NFHS Track and Field rule and editorial changes, points of emphasis for both the NFHS and Minnesota, and finally the Minnesota rules modifications. The first change we're going to discuss modifies rules 363 and 576 regarding when the starter should recall a distance race if a competitor falls near the beginning of that race. Previously, the starter would recall the race if a competitor fell during the first 100 meters. This has been changed to be within the first 50 meters of the start. The rationale is that athletes are up to speed well before the 100-meter mark, thus 50 meters is sufficient in calling a fair start. The 100-meter recall distance could also be problematic depending on the location of field events and number of athletes and officials on the track that could obstruct the view of the members of the start team. Rules 510 and 511 have been reorganized so that all relay infractions are in one place within the rule, Section 11, making it easier for officials to reference when ruling on a violation. No rules have changed, only the organization of the rule regarding relay infractions. The revision to Rule 513.1 clarifies when an athlete should be disqualified for leaving the track on a straightaway. If an athlete intentionally steps off the track to gain an advantage, such as improving their position or shortening the course, they shall be disqualified. However, if they are forced off the track or step inside the curb or line accidentally, it is not grounds for disqualification.
Clause F was added to Rule 622, requiring that a competitor be warned, verbally, by signal, or both, when 15 seconds remain to initiate a trial in a field event. The Games Committee has the authority to decide the type of signal used, which may include a flag, a clock, verbal signals, or a combination of these methods. This change gives athletes notification that their time limit is about to expire. And additionally, this change brings officiating practices in line with other rules codes, while still giving the Games Committee options for using flags, a signal clock, or verbal signals. The table, as seen below here in Rule 622, that specifies the time limits for field events throughout the competition, including times based on the number of competitors remaining for the vertical jumps, has been updated for clarity. The change to this table and the additions of the notes helps to clarify the time limits of all competitors throughout the entire competition in field events. Two notes have been added to Rule 622. The first clarifies that the time allowed to initiate a trial is based on the number of competitors remaining at the start of a round or a bar height, and that remains unchanged until the next bar height is set. The second note specifies that all competitors are given 1 minute for their first attempt in the competition, regardless of the number of athletes who are still competing at that time. The language of Rule 632 was modified for clarity to address the situation when there is a tie for first place, but the last height attempted by all competitors is not the same due to a past height. In that instance, the jump-off shall commence at the next height in the original progression after the tying height. For example, competitors A and B are the only two competitors remaining in the high jump, and they have identical numbers of misses at each height up to and including 5 feet 6 inches, which they both clear. The bar is moved to 5 feet 8 inches. Competitors A and B both miss their first two attempts at 5 feet 8 inches. Competitor A also misses the third attempt at 5'8". Competitor B passes on the third attempt at 5'8", and the bar is moved to 5'10". Competitor B subsequently misses their attempt at 5'10". This is their third miss in a row, resulting in a tie for first place at 5 foot 6 inches. The first height in the jump-off will then be 5 feet 8 inches, the next height in the original progression after the tying height. Modifications to Rule 682 clarify the definition of an active flight versus a continuing flight for the vertical jump competitions. The Games Committee may designate that active flights of no less than 5 competitors, also known as 5 alive, can be used if the number of entries dictates. The Games Committee may also specify that continuing flights, or straight-through flights, be used. A change to Rule 6922 specifies the minimum distance between the plane of the crossbar and the landing pad in the high jump. This creates a consistent and standard distance for the placement of the high jump crossbar and standards.
We will now review some editorial changes that have been made to the 2025 rulebook. The first change affects Rule 311C. The outdated term head field judge has been replaced with field referee, indicating that the field referee has equal standing when it comes to ruling on field events as the running referee has for track events. The change to Rule 327 clarifies that the Games Committee may allow officials to use electronic devices to communicate with each other during the competition. The provisions regarding the use of electronic devices in the competition area, previously in Rule 328, have been relocated to Rule 466, which addresses competitor conduct. While the wording and intent of the rule remain unchanged, this move places it alongside other unfair acts, making it more accessible for officials. In Rule 342, the term clerical was removed to better define the referee's authority and streamline the process for resolving issues. Most post-competition issues are minor and can be efficiently addressed if the referee retains authority consistent with their role during the competition, eliminating the need for involvement from entities like state associations. The final editorial change is to Rule 431B, which no longer contains the terminology track top and track bottom, as neither are required to be a traditional track uniform top or bottom.
Next, we'll cover the points of emphasis from the National Federation of High Schools. The high jump and pole vault events demand attention to their landing systems to ensure athlete safety and event integrity. Officials overseeing these events must be knowledgeable about the setup, maintenance, and management of the landing areas. Before any meet, officials should inspect the landing mats for wear and tear, ensuring that they're in good condition, free of rips, and that they provide adequate cushioning. They also must confirm that the landing system is on a level surface and that all padding around the uprights and any other hard surfaces is securely attached and sufficient to prevent injuries. The mats should be properly secured and aligned to fully cover the designated landing area. Additionally, the surrounding event area must also be free of obstacles and hazards to ensure a safe competition environment. Monitoring the landing system throughout the event is essential for safety. Regularly inspect the landing mats between attempts for any displacement or damage, and promptly adjust them if they shift or if any padding becomes dislodged to ensure a safe environment for all competitors.
Under current NFHS rules, athletes may be excused from competition to participate in other events. The Games Committee for each meet will determine the time limits for such absences. Because field event venues vary in location from site to site, these time limits may differ accordingly. While excused to compete in another event, a competitor will not be called for a trial during their absence. In vertical jumps, the Games Committee must determine whether the crossbar will be raised if all of the competitors have either cleared the current height or have been eliminated before the excused athlete's time limit expires. Additionally, the committee must establish a protocol for handling situations where an athlete does not return before their excused time limit expires. The head event judge may adjust the competition order in both preliminary and final rounds to accommodate an athlete competing in another event. Successive trials may also be considered for these athletes. In the final round, if a competitor needs to be excused, the athlete with the best mark from the preliminaries has the right to take the last attempt of the competition and may choose to wait until all excused competitors have completed their trials. Coaches must be aware of the event schedule and potential conflicts before submitting meet entries. It is the athlete's responsibility to inform the head event judge of any scheduling conflict and request permission to be excused from an event. If an athlete fails to notify the judge, they forfeit the excused absence protocol and may be called to compete, potentially resulting in one or more missed trials. For further details, refer to the NFHS casebook, specifically Rule 623 Situation D, which outlines the guidelines for competitors excused to compete in another event.
In field events, all competitors must initiate their attempts within a standard time limit. As we discussed earlier, the event timetable within the rules book has been updated to help officials navigate these different times. In the vertical jumps, specific variations can occur. For example, competitors may choose to wait until the bar is set at a higher height before entering the competition. Regardless of when a competitor enters the competition or the number of competitors remaining, those entering the competition have 1 minute to initiate their first attempt of the competition. If at any time during the competition a competitor will take consecutive attempts, then they are granted 2 minutes in the high jump and 3 minutes in the pole vault between those attempts. If the athlete becomes the final competitor after clearing the bar, they have won the competition. If the competitor wishes to continue jumping, they are granted 5 minutes between attempts for the remainder of the competition.
Fair starts are crucial to the success of any track event. It is the ultimate responsibility of the starter to provide fair starts and enforce the rules governing the start. Inevitably, false starts will happen, and the penalty for them is immediate disqualification. Because of this severe penalty, in 2024 the NFHS revised the definition of a false start to eliminate many false start disqualifications that were made because of incidental extraneous motions that did not result in anyone leaving their marks. The revision to this rule did not introduce any changes. Any forward motion before the start signal that is not stopped and results in the competitor leaving their mark before or as the signal sounds, commonly known as a rolling start, has always been and remains a false start. Ensuring fair starts requires a proactive and preventative approach to officiating. Starters and assistant starters should confidently use the command "stand up" to halt the starting process when necessary. Additionally, they should not hesitate to warn competitors who cause delays in the start process.
Now we'll review the points of emphasis for Minnesota. A reminder that several rule changes from 2024 are important for all officials to review. The language in Rule 574C was updated to define a false start as occurring when, quote, a runner leaves their mark with a hand or foot after the set command, but before the starting device is fired. A note was also added stating that extraneous motion before the start does not automatically result in a false start, unless it meets the new criteria. Starters, you should review Rule 5.7 before the season. Rule 5 also clarified that any hurdle knocked down or displaced by a hand constitutes a violation. Rule 6 was updated to allow athletes to apply tape to their fingers as long as all fingers remain able to move independently. And finally, Rule 6.3.2 allows for 2 or more competitors that are tied for first place at the end of a competition to withdraw before a jump-off begins or at a height change. If all competitors withdraw, they will share first place, and team points will be distributed equally among them. Officials should familiarize themselves with these updates to ensure proper enforcement throughout the season. As certified officials, many of us act as the referee at meets. We will briefly review the duties of the referee before, during, and after a meet. Anyone who acts as a referee at a meet should review the referee duties specified in Rule 3, Section 4. As a referee, the top priority is safety of the athletes, followed by ensuring a fair competition for all. Prior to the meet, the referee should meet with site and/or meet management to review safety and dangerous weather procedures. The best opportunity for this is the pre-contest timeout that Jason mentioned at the beginning of this module. Have a plan in place for officials, athletes, and spectators in the case of an emergency that requires evacuating the venue. Next, all field event venues should be inspected for safety and rule compliance. If you deem that it is not safe to hold a competition at one of the field event venues, you should first try and fix the safety issue. If that is not possible, Inform site and meet management that the event cannot be contested due to safety concerns. Remember, team points for that specific event are then distributed equally among all teams except the home or host school. A short meeting with head officials should be conducted to review any games committee decisions that will affect the competition. For instance, 4 attempts in the field events instead of prelims and finals. Finally, meet with the coaches and discuss sportsmanship expectations, uniform rule compliance, and meet procedures. During the meet, the referee should ensure a safe competition. If, during the course of an event, equipment becomes unsafe, the event should be postponed until it can be made safe. If that is not possible, the event should be canceled. The referee, in conjunction with site and meet management, should stay informed of any approaching severe weather, taking appropriate action as necessary. The referee is also responsible for ensuring a fair competition by ruling on infractions and, along with the starter, is the only person that can disqualify an athlete from an event. It is important to understand the specific wording of rules, especially the distinction between shall and may. When a rule states shall, the action is mandatory if the infraction occurs. However, if the rule uses may, the referee has discretion to determine the appropriate course of action based on the situation. When an athlete is disqualified for breaking a rule, the referee should inform the head coach of that team as soon as possible. The referee is also responsible for verifying any records that are set during the competition. This may involve signing or submitting paperwork attesting to the accuracy of the performance. An important and hopefully rare duty of the referee is to rule on when a race should be rerun. Rule 343 provides guidance on how to determine if a rerun is necessary. If a coach wants to protest a call, they first protest to the referee. As a referee, you should be familiar with Rule 3.5, Articles 3 and 4, that list situations that are eligible and not eligible for protest or appeal. The referee should remain on site for 30 minutes after the results of the last event have been posted to field any protests or appeals. Once the time has expired, the referee should certify the results.
Electronic starting devices are becoming more common in track and field, and additional information on their use can be found in several articles on the track and field page of the Central Hub. The rulebook currently recommends using 22 caliber starter pistols for indoor meets and 32 caliber pistols for outdoor meets. However, black powder blanks for these pistols are becoming increasingly difficult to find. As an alternative, pistols that accept 209 caliber blanks, which are essentially shotgun primers, can be used in place of 22 caliber pistols for indoor meets. Outdoors, a 9mm pistol serves as an equivalent substitute. It is important to note that most 209 and 9mm blanks are not black powder, meaning they produce very little smoke or flash. This can make them ineffective for meets that rely on hand timers, as they may not be a clear visual cue to signal the start. To avoid any issues, meet management should be contacted well in advance to confirm whether fully automatic timing, FAT, or hand timing will be used, allowing the appropriate starting device to be selected. The rulebook also specifies that starting pistols must be closed barrel, though it does not define the term. A closed barrel means that the pistol has an obstruction in the barrel that prevents a projectile from passing through. However, some closed barrel pistols may still have small openings that allow gases to escape. When purchasing a new starting pistol, it is essential to confirm that it is explicitly designated as a closed barrel model to ensure compliance with regulations. Rule 466 prohibits the use of electronic devices in competition or other restricted areas as defined by the Games Committee. Under no circumstances may electronic devices be used to transmit information to a competitor during a race or trial. Any athletes who violates this rule will be disqualified from the event. Additionally, if a coach, manager, or other team personnel communicate electronically with an athlete during competition, they will be disqualified from further participation in the meet for unsporting conduct. Athletes are permitted to wear smartwatches, but they must not be used for communication during competition. The Games Committee may grant permission for officials to use electronic communication equipment if deemed necessary. Lastly, only finish line video equipment that has been approved by the Games Committee before the start of the competition may be used to make meet-related decisions.
Vault officials and referees must be familiar with the rules governing legal vaulting poles. Before the competition, each team must provide the meet referee, field referee, or head event judge with a weight verification form. This form, signed by the school's athletic director and head coach, must list all competing vaulters along with their weights. The vault official is responsible for verifying that all poles meet the required specifications and that each vaulter is using a pole rated for a weight equal to or greater than their own. Additionally, both judges and coaches must ensure that all competitors wear a helmet during warm-ups, practice, and competition to maintain safety standards. Current logo, trademark, and reference restrictions remain in place for all uniform tops and bottoms. A reminder of the change dealing with the manufacturer's names or logos on the waistband of all garments. Those garments no longer violate this rule. The current interpretation of a foundation garment includes any item worn under the uniform top and/or bottom. Note that while national rules do not differentiate between foundation garments worn by competitors in individual events versus those worn by relay team members, Minnesota has a modification in place that does differentiate them. This modification will be covered shortly. Finally, there is a section in the Minnesota State High School League handbook governing special recognition and commemorative or memorial patches on competitor uniforms. The handbook is available on the league website. Reviewing foundation garments and the rule regarding them, let's take a look at the athlete on the left. This athlete has boxers showing. The middle athlete has a large manufacturer's logo on his compression shorts, and the athlete on the right has an oversized school mascot on his compression shorts. All of these are considered foundation garments because they are worn underneath the official school-issued uniform shorts, and thus they do not violate color or logo restrictions. As mentioned earlier, Minnesota State High School League Rule Modification H covers foundation garments for relay teams. In Minnesota, when 2 or more relay team members are wearing a visible foundation garment, they all must be of the same single solid color. Colors of the top and bottom foundation garments do not have to match. The exception is for briefs or sports bras. They do not fall under this restriction. The relay team pictured here is not in compliance, since the foundation garments worn by one of the runners is not a single solid color.
Each year, there are questions regarding what headgear is allowed during competition. Anything that uses a knot to secure it, including headbands, bandanas, and do-rags, are not allowed. Baseball caps are also prohibited. Head coverings that do not have knots, such as stocking caps, wave caps, or skull caps, are allowed. There are no restrictions on hair control devices. Paint and stickers adorning the face and/or body are not allowed. Coaches make every effort to inform your athletes of this rule and ensure compliance. Here are some examples of headgear that are and are not allowed. The next section to be covered are the rule modifications specific to Minnesota. Last year, the NFHS increased the number of events in which athletes are allowed to compete, while still providing states flexibility to modify those limits. Minnesota's participation and entry limitations remain unchanged. They continue to be more restrictive than the National Federation limits. All coaches and officials should be reminded of the following. First, an athlete may compete in up to 4 events, but not in excess of 3 track events, individual or relay, or 3 field events in arriving at the total of 4. Second, an athlete who has already participated in 3 running events is not eligible to be listed as a runner or an alternate on a relay card for a subsequent event. This table modifies the one found under Rule 421 and further illustrates the Minnesota modifications for entry limits. Note that if an athlete is not entered in any individual events, they may be listed on any number of relay cards, but they can only compete in 3 relays. Also note that an athlete becomes a participant when they report to the clerk of course for the event. In subsection and section competition, a contestant becomes officially entered into the first level of competition upon the entry deadline established by the section. If section meet procedures allow for scratches on meet day, this will be allowed at the first level of competition only, and these must take place prior to the start of the earliest event of the meet. Additions may not be made for any reason. Once the first level of competition begins, the athlete must report for and compete in all events in which they are entered. This includes events in which they advance to the next level of competition, such as from subsection to section or section to state. If an athlete does not compete in all events entered, it will result in the athlete being disqualified from all events in which they are entered, including events that have already been contested and are final. Medical exceptions to this policy will be handled on an individual basis at the meet by the Games Committee in consultation with on-site medical personnel.
Relays advance as a school team. Therefore, the relay team, 4 runners and up to 4 alternates, may change from subsections to sections and from sections to state. In subsection, section, and state competition, the relay team members, runners, and alternates must be declared prior to the first round of competition at each level. If a preliminary round of an event is run at the same level of competition, the relay team for finals of that same event must be chosen from the already provided list of declared runners. Those that participate in the relay, that is, if they check into the clerk of course with the relay team, must have not already participated in more than 2 running events. Let's take a look at examples showing the Minnesota participation limitation criteria. An individual who is entered in the 100 meter, 200 meter, and 400 meter dashes is not eligible to be placed on a relay team as a runner or as an alternate because they have maximized their participation in running events. As a reminder, they are limited to 3. An individual who is entered in the 100 meter, 200 meter, and 4x400 meter relay may be listed as an alternate in other relays. However, if they run in one of the other relays, they may not participate in the 4x400 meter relay. An athlete that is entered in 3 individual events, for example, the 100, 200, and 400, cannot be listed as one of the 8 athletes in a relay. If they are included on a relay card, they will be disqualified from all events entered, even if the event has already taken place.
A competitor who fails to qualify in a preliminary round of any event shall be considered to have participated in that event. That event counts towards their participation limit, even if the preliminaries and finals are held on separate days. In addition to the limit of 3 track events, only 2 of those events can be 800 meters or longer. The penalty for violating this rule is forfeiture of individual places already achieved and disqualification from further participation in the meet. If one of the events is a relay, the places and points for the relay team are also forfeited. A reminder that wind gauges must be used at the section level for the 100 meters, 200 meters, 100 meter and 110 meter hurdles, long jump, and triple jump. The wind gauge measurement must be less than or equal to a positive 4.0 meters per second in order for competitors to advance to the state meet by meeting or exceeding the standard in those events. Again, emphasizing that safety is the top priority, All pole vault participants must wear a helmet during practice, warm-ups, and competition. Each year, we receive numerous questions about acceptable head coverings that can be worn in competition. To clarify, Minnesota Modification G restricts non-religious head coverings for competitors. Prohibited items include scarves, bandanas, headbands, and do-rags secured with a knot, as well as baseball-style caps. Note that National Federation rules allow athletes to wear head coverings for religious reasons, but they must be securely attached to the body or uniform and made of non-abrasive, soft materials. Additionally, Minnesota prohibits face and body paint as well as stickers. Officials, please enforce these rules consistently at all meets. Educating athletes early on what is and isn't allowed will help minimize issues at conference, section, and state competitions.
And now a few words about the Coaches and Officials Code of Ethics and coach-official interactions.
Officials and coaches should both be aware of their respective codes of ethics. They are located in the appendices of the rulebook. It is a good idea to review these periodically to remind ourselves of our responsibilities as coaches and officials. It is important that officials and coaches work together to provide a positive experience for student athletes. Coaches spend countless hours preparing athletes for competition, and officials spend many hours learning the rules and honing their skills. Understand that both want what is best for the student athletes, with fair and equal application of the rules. The sport of track and field is an extension of the classroom, where the goal is a positive learning situation for all student athletes.
Listed here are some do's and don'ts for both coaches and officials. Officials, strive to treat all coaches equally, regardless of any prior relationship, good or bad. Allowing some coaches privileges that you deny to others may give some athletes an advantage. As an example, check with the Games Committee regarding coaches' boxes. If there are designated coaches' boxes for an event, communicate and enforce that all coaches must stay in those boxes or in unrestricted areas for the duration of the warm-ups and competition. Allowing some coaches access to student athletes while denying others provides an advantage to some athletes. Regardless of the situation, remember to treat all student athletes, administrators, head and assistant coaches, and officials with respect. Remember, our goal is to provide a safe and fair competition for all student athletes.
Hi, this is Jason. I'm back to cover a few administrative reminders before concluding this module. If you would like to use or view the NFHS rules book electronically, you should go to the NFHS All Access website to register your account. Go to allaccess.nfhs.org to do this step prior to downloading the app. This is the only way you can access NFHS publications in a digital format. Once you have registered your account on the NFHS All Access site, you should download the mobile app. You can find this app on the App Store and on Google Play. This app allows you to utilize all digital features of the rules book and other NFHS publications. Again, go to the All Access website and register your account, and then download the mobile app, which is free to download, and then you must purchase the rules book within the app. It's usually $6.99 per document or rules book. The NFHS Learning Center is home to more than 90 online professional development courses for everyone within the interscholastic community, including coaches, students, officials, parents, and administrators. More than 60 of these courses are available for free. Go to nfhslearn.com to learn more about these courses and to register your account. The NFHS has partnered with USA Track and Field to develop a coaching track and field course. Course objectives include the fundamentals of running, jumping, and throwing events. It highlights the importance of sound mechanics and teaching basic skills for all these events, as well as video demonstrations that you can use to teach and coach more effectively in track and field. Like the officiating courses and any other course that's available on the nfhslearn.com platform, you can go to that site to learn more about this course and to register. The state coordinator for track and field and cross country is John Pursoon of Mahtomedi. Coaches and officials may contact John for any questions on rules, rule interpretations, or other questions regarding officiating. John's contact information is available both on the Arbiter Central Hub page as well as the coach's dashboard.